principles tonight. We are on the principle of humility. That is principle number 7. And we have Haley and Jody on our panel tonight, and they will be helping us tackle humility. So real quick before we get started, we wanted to remind everybody we have 10 days left. 10 days left if you want to purchase your tickets to the Sober Soiree. We have to have numbers into the catering and all that kind of stuff. So September 23rd is the absolute last day. It goes to fund our sober living, which is needed now more than any time I can remember. We have people constantly coming to us about if we have rooms. So we are quickly needing the rooms. So we would encourage you, if it is on your heart, to join us that night. You can get your tickets at rim.church. Okay. So real quick, what is spiritual principle number 1? Honesty. Then 2.
Hope.
Then 3.
Faith.
All right, and those, along with Jesus as our chief cornerstone, that lays our foundation of the house we're building, right? So what's 4?
Courage.
Courage, that's our first wall. Second wall?
Integrity.
Third wall? We did it last week. Willingness, there you go. And then tonight is the 4th wall, humility. And humility in the Webster Dictionary is a modest or low view of one's own importance. The Bible tells us that we should not think that we are more than what we are, basically. Don't think too highly of yourself, in layman's terms. So our spiritual navigation is humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. So, number 1, we have to be willing, right, to see our shortcomings and to submit them to the Father in heaven, because we can't fulfill anything. I think we've all learned that. All learned it the hard way. I don't know anyone who's learned that the easy way. We can't fulfill anything in this journey. We have to allow Him to fulfill it in us. So, it says we see from our willingness, or your spiritual highlighter, that's what we like to call it, to acknowledge any and all shortcomings. It gives us the ability to find a pathway from the fruit to the root. Now, this part is never easy. When you are having to address the very real issues in your life, addiction is simply a fruit of a bad root, right? There's something happened to cause this to become the outlet in which you have chosen, or, life has chosen for you to numb yourself, to feel like you fit in, whatever it may be. That addiction does for you. It's just simply a fruit of a deeper issue. And a lot of places, a lot of programs, they don't want to get to the root. They just want to cut off the fruit. So when we are humbling ourselves before the Lord and we are asking Him to remove our shortcomings, that means I am laying down even the things that I love, even the things that I am okay with, that I like to tolerate in my life. We're laying all of that down and saying, if this is a shortcoming, God, help me remove it from my life. Right? So we're going to throw this to Pastor Haley real quick. What are some of the things that you might have still been in love with that God asked you to give to Him?
Well, one personally from this week was I've really been seeking the Lord, searching my heart. Like, my desire is to have a pure, clean heart, and I noticed I had some pride left, and so that's one of the things that I've had to give in this week. It's not an easy process, just because it's kind of like having to retrain how you even think or operate anymore. Like when I want to rise up in pride and shame, or somebody else, it's like I have to rewire my brain to think a different way. That's definitely one. I say that's the one I'm dealing with probably the most right now.
Jody, what's something that you were still in love with that God highlighted and said, hey, Jody, this is a problem?
I've had several things that God has highlighted and said that this is still a problem. One of them just is having being prideful. And it's very easy to be prideful. It's so easy to be prideful. It's so easy to get in that mindset of spending so many years learning how the world wants you to be. That the world tells you that you don't have to be less than. But, we know that pride was the original sin too. And that is in my opinion, is one of the most common ways that the enemy does attack us. Because there's so many different levels and so many different types of pride that when you start breaking it down and really looking into it, you don't even realize that you're acting out of pride. And that is something that God has continuously been working on me for months. Because every time I feel like I'm getting up one type of pride, here comes another one, here comes another one. And I'm so grateful for it because that's not what I want to be. Jesus said, follow me, and I'm going to follow him. And if you go and read through the Bible in the New Testament, Jesus was never prideful. At every, if anyone could have been, it would have been him. But yet, here we are, and for me, even being prideful, we try to set a throne above God's throne in our pride. So, I think dealing with pride is a huge, huge step forward in even growing in relationship with God.
And it says, this is the part of the process where we start addressing by the Holy Spirit what holds our soul in captivity. And I think we have all had some form of pride in our lives, whether it was like hurt pride, humble pride is a thing where you're like, well, I don't want to bother them because they're busy, and really you're just refusing to reach out for help. And I struggle with that one the most, I think. But that holds our soul captive. It keeps us from being closer to the Father in heaven. It keeps us from being closer to what He originally created us to be. So I think that's interesting that both of y'all from totally different walks of life, totally different professions now, totally different personalities. Y'all have the same answer. Like, this is the thing that I was in love with, that God required of me. Mine, and this is a form of pride, is my kids. Like, I am overly protective of my kids. Y'all already know that, but they may not. Like, I don't want them to go anywhere, do anything, be with anybody that's not me. Not because I don't want them to have healthy relationships, but there was this fear that if I wasn't there to protect them, something bad could happen. And that's prideful of me. Like, their father's fully capable of protecting them. My mom is fully capable of protecting. I'm pretty sure my mom would come off that cane so quick if anything came after her grandbabies. But there was this level of like trauma pride that was in me that I'm really having to day by day relinquish. So this thing, I think even Jody talked about it. You get rid of one type of pride, another type of pride would show up. It is not a one and done, right? That's why these are principles and they're not steps. Steps, you go up, you come down. Principles are built in you consistently over time, and there will always be a revealing of things that we need to let go of until the day of Jesus Christ. So, I think that was a pretty awesome answer.
I mean, I've also dealt with, like, worrying about my kids and having to learn to trust that God has them, but being prideful and worrying and stressing anyway. That's something that I've had to do tonight. Like, Kylie just turned 16. She's growing in independence, and she went to the fair, and she went with another teenage driver, and I'm stressing out all day, not trusting God, like being prideful about it. But I finally just had to say, God, you gave her to me. You've got her. You can take care of her better than I can. And just surround her and protect her. And I'm going to try to quit worrying about it.
We'll be praying for you on that one. I know what that's like. No, it's not. Most character defects come from agreements of lies, from traumatic events that we experience as children or throughout our lives. Would y'all agree with that? These lies, I don't know why I make random noises. I do it every time I have a microphone. These lies have developed deep roots of fear, bitterness, and selfishness. And this is where pride grips us. We become self-reliant, operating in our own power and resources, and we try to meet all our own needs. Now, I used to tell you I could meet all my own needs. And I didn't realize how much I was dying on the inside. So, what are some ways, as you walk this, Jody, you've done this like at least 5 times. You've been through these spiritual parts, at least 5 times, I know. So, what are some ways that you feel like he has helped you break agreement with the lies of the trauma?
That as you talk about that, I brought back to the fruit and the root. Originally, the lie was that I was addicted to drugs just because I was an addict. But the truth was that I was self-medicating to numb so I didn't have to feel. So in that revelation, then I could actually go in and because I had stopped doing drugs, and over about a year period had relapsed 3 times. And finally I sat down with God and I'm like, why am I keep doing these cycles? And through Holy Spirit, that's where the revelation would come that it wasn't the addiction that kept me running back to drugs. It was the deeper rooted abandonment and rejection issues that I had grown so accustomed to over my life, and came into full agreement with the lies, just as you talk about bitterness. And I was someone that was hurt, and I wanted to hurt other people. And so coming into agreement with those lies, that is something that it really took Holy Spirit to come in and say, okay, we're going to deal with this trauma, but, and just as Haley was talking about, it come down to a complete kind of rewire the whole way I was thinking. I spent a lot of time meditating and reciting Romans 12:2. But that was how my process that I went through, at least in that aspect, to break the lies and to come into agreement with what it is that God says about me, and not what the world says about me or what the world says I should be.
That's good. For those of you that don't know, Romans 12:2 says, be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. So the person who is transforming your mind is not you, right? It's Holy Spirit, it's Jesus Christ is allowing him to operate in you and through you that begins to transform, not change, but transform your mind so that it should never return to what it used to be. So you can always tell if the trauma is still hidden under the surface, right? Because something will still trigger you back to that old mindset. So Haley, you were not addicted to substances. So Jody had a relapse. Like, okay, there's still something here that I haven't dealt with. What is the thing that makes you know, like, hey, this spot's still sensitive since it's not a substance?
Well, I was not addicted to drugs, but I found that even though maybe a certain spot has healed, like sexual abuse, I feel like that I've been healed completely from. It's not sensitive to me anymore. I can pray for my abuser. I can help other women. It's not sensitive. But I have found that other things that I didn't realize were necessarily things that I needed to heal from, there'll be triggers for that. Say what you was gonna say again. I'm sorry, my brain just went whoop.
How can you tell if a spot is still sensitive since you don't return to a substance?
Well, like I said, a trigger. Honestly, it's something to trigger. And it could be something so easy, or it could be that I have found that I'm suppressing things in other areas, like maybe not with a drug, or maybe not with alcohol, or nicotine, or anything, but maybe with being a people pleaser, maybe with being, what's the word I was just thinking of? Spending money, for example. I have found out probably, I'd say the last 6 months, that I was still suppressing some things that I had trauma from and I always could tell because if I ever got triggered, I'd try to suppress them and go buy something or spend money, and it would make me instantly give me a high. Just like a drug would, but it's not a substance, it's just spending money that you don't have. And that's one of the ways that I have found recently that, is something that, maybe rejection, abandonment, insecurity. Like there's always, like you said, a path to the root, right? And I find that if I'm getting triggered, I suppress. I'm not usually one that I'm going to talk about it a lot. I'm just going to try to suppress it and act like it's not there. I'm not going to reach out to people either. I got that. I've been working on that pride too, so.
Yeah. I'm not good at that one. I'm working on it.
It's hard.
It is hard. But it's necessary. It is necessary. God gave us the people in our lives for a reason because He knew it wasn't good for us to have to go through these things alone. So when we are humble, we can be reminded that, hey, I'm not perfect and I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to appear perfect to those around me. They love me for who I am and how God created me, and they're here for me. If you do not have people that you can say that about in your life, get rid of them. You don't need that. I mean that as humbly as I can possibly say it. The people in your circle, in your recovery, have to be for you. If you have a person in your circle during your recovery who is always reminding you of the old man, how can that be a trigger, Jody?
How can being reminded of the old man be a trigger?
Having that one person that always wants to take you back to the good old days.
Yeah, and that is something I learned early on. I had to separate myself from. Because having that person, it is a trigger, especially when you're first starting out, first becoming sober, first realizing that you're walking with the Holy Spirit, and these, as you said, the spiritual highlighter, these things are being highlighted. If you don't have someone there to be on your side and push you in the right direction, or at least for me, I can only speak for myself on this, it automatically takes me back into that place. It takes me back into dealing with those traumas. It takes me back, I've healed enough from it now, but there was times if someone come up and talk about the old days of even doing drugs, then I would be taken back to that, even to the point of considering going to one. So it very much can be a trigger, and it can even be very harmful. It can really derail your walk with God and completely sideswipe it. Because they may not have that healing that you have, and in their brokenness, they still want to see other people broken with them. The saying, misery loves company. So in that, I completely agree with you when you said if these people are not for you, and they're not trying to lead you down the right path, you need to get rid of them.
And that's a hard step to take. That is a hard step to take. I know when I first came to Jesus, I wasn't addicted to a substance. But I wasn't living right. We'll just say it like that. I just wasn't living right. I don't know what you even call it. And God spoke to me very clearly. He said, are you going to quit playing church with me and submit? You've got to change everything about your life. And I was like, everything? I had to cut everybody off. I had to cut everything off. And it felt like I was starting completely over. And then God began to put people around me that would rebuke me, would correct me. And sometimes that will make you mad. When someone speaks the truth to you and it's not a truth you want to address at the moment, it will make you mad. And you have to learn how to stay humble and not cuss them out and not curse them and not just write them off, because I was good at that. I'd write you off in a heartbeat. But I had to learn how to take rebuke and correction. So, Haley, how do you stay humble in the midst of your emotions when the people you know love you are giving you correction or even a harsh rebuke?
Ooh, that's hard. It's so hard. What I've had to do, because you and Dustin have made me probably madder than anybody I know at times. It was good for me. You know, I knew they cared about me, but like I have to put, like it may take me a day to process. A lot of times it's like, okay, I gotta process through these emotions. But then I realized as I got out of my emotions that they're for you. You kind of have to know their intent behind it. You got to know that they're saying it out of love. They're not saying it to break you down. They're not saying it to, whatever else. Not reject you, maybe, whatever. You got to know the source. Now, taking rebuke or correction from people you don't know as well to me is harder, because you may not know their intent. But if we love God, and we should all, right? Like, even if we don't like what they're saying, we should still honor what they're saying until we process through it and pray about it. That's how I've dealt with it. I haven't always liked what I've been told. By all means, I have not. But I know that taking the correction and taking the rebuke has shifted me out of old mindsets before and completely shift my paradigm. It's necessary, because you have to have that shifted mindset, and sometimes that correction or rebuke will do it. When our mind is so wired to think in old ways, old patterns, like, I don't know if y'all know this, but being a medical person, it actually causes ridges in your brain. It causes pathways. So it's not only like you're thinking spiritual mind has to be renewed, right? Your soul your physical brain has to be renewed. And sometimes, taking that will help start that process, even though it doesn't feel great at the time. But we know by now that we don't always we shouldn't, sometimes we do, go by how we feel about it. We should go by, well, if the Holy Spirit tells us it's good, I guess it's good, right?
It takes 6 weeks.
Yeah.
A minimum of 6 weeks to create a new pattern in your brain. Team medical over here. That's good. So, Joby, when you get that correction and that rebuke that you don't want to receive, and you kind of go through that, well, I used to do this, and this, so at least I'm doing better. You ever been there? Okay. Making sure. I do that all the time still. Once you go through that process, are you able to at the end say, this is a biblical truth that they spoke to me? I'm sure not everybody's rebuke is always biblical, but are you able to get back once you get through your emotions, our excuses? Are you able to walk back to this is the truth and it was spoken to me? And if so, how do you get through that process?
For me, I'm very much like Haley on that as well. I have to separate when there is a correction or you know a pretty serious review that comes forth that causes an emotional response out of me. I have to separate myself from the situation to process it. And a lot of times I have to go back and I'm very analytical in my thinking. I think a lot, so I have to process through my own mind, through my own emotions. And at that point, once I can get through them, just like he was talking about, once I can get through my emotions, I have to come back to the realization of looking at who it come from. Just like Eddie said something about knowing the source. Say from you or Dustin, I know without a shadow of a doubt, y'all are for me. And I know y'all are mighty people of God, and I trust y'all with everything. So I have to remind myself of that so that I don't automatically just reject it. It is a process for me to receive it a lot of times. But in that, you know, and there are times that I actually go back and seek it out. I will get in the Bible and look at it and make sure that what they are saying to me, where the correction is coming from, that, you know, that it is biblical. And in that, you know, like I said, I just really, there is a relationship that has been built over the years that, you know, I know that certain people are for me and truly believe that with everything in me, as opposed to just someone, you know, someone that I don't really know. I'm not going to give names, but I can name an instance where someone gave me a review, or not, I don't really want to say a review, it was more of a correction. And I didn't know this person, so I submitted it to Dustin, and Dustin's like, well, I understand you don't know him, but you trust me. And so in that pulled me into that spot where I know he is for me. So I received correction.
Yeah, I think there's I guess it's a doctrine that goes around that says we can only receive from certain people, people that we have a relationship with. I think maybe that's something we built up in our minds, you know. But biblically, prophets from other nations would go tell a whole nation, God's going to destroy you, right? And there wasn't necessarily the relationship there. Those were hard, like your whole nation is going to be gone by this time tomorrow. God's going to do it. And they were able to receive the rebuke. So as you walk in this journey, I know in the beginning it's very, very raw and very hard to receive any kind of correction from someone you don't have a relationship with. In walking further into this, has it been easier for you to receive correction from someone who you may not necessarily know if it is the word of the Lord versus a critical spirit?
I feel like it's gotten easier. It's not 100% easy. No correction rebuke is ever going to feel good, ever. But I think it's gotten easier. Now, I wouldn't say it's completely easy, but easier. A little bit easier, I guess I would say. But I think people that have dealt with, like, rejection by words, that form of abuse, that kind of thing, I feel like sometimes you take things to heart more and you don't reflect on what the purpose was behind it or the intent of their words. So you do, like Jody was saying, you do have to kind of, especially if you're analytical, you got to analyze everything. But I would say that it's gotten easier, especially now that I know people and I understand the purpose behind it. So, I can't say next time somebody that I don't know, corrects me or rebukes me, I'm gonna react any better. But I feel like I've got over that hump a little bit.
So Jody, what do you think it is about correction from someone you don't know, like biblical correction, not crazy daisy correction. But biblical correction from someone you don't know. What do you think it is about that makes us all go,
100%. 100%. It is absolutely pride. I mean, and that is very much, as Haley was saying here speaking, you know, that I kept hearing pride over and over and over. That's all us having a negative emotional response to any kind of correction is just a form of pride. And then coming in someone, you know, for me, I think that I have issues still with trusting people I don't know. And so, in that, when someone comes to me and corrects me, immediately my first reaction is, you know, I don't trust you. But then again, you know, you take it to the Lord, someone you do trust. You start asking the Holy Spirit to give you revelation. You start seeking it out in the Word. And all honesty, I see that as an act of humility that is breaking the pride. But it's still not easy to receive correction from someone you don't know. For the simple fact of, you know, that for me, there's that trust issue. And without having a relationship and knowing someone, knowing just as Haley had said, their intent, what their motives are, you know, there's always that little bit that's in the back of your head. Even, you know, I kind of hesitate to say this, even if you feel like it is a word from God, there's still always that in the back of your head that's saying, well, this person's not for you, this person will know you. But that is, when it comes down to prophecy, you know, that is prophecy. And prophecy can come as several people. That is the Holy Spirit speaking to them and speaking through them. So it's something that's not very easy, and it's something that I do struggle with. But a lot of times I have to submit and to people that I do trust. Take that route.
And most biblical prophecy is not happy, right? Most biblical prophecy is like, get your house in order. You know, he will deliver you a swift word, and he will do it through whoever he chooses, as long as it is done in humility from the person that is delivering the message. I think that makes it a little easier to receive. I am the opposite of both of you. You can rebuke me and correct me all day long. I'm like, yeah, probably did. I probably did it. But you tell me something good I did, and I'm like, are you sure that was me? Somebody can be like, I like your outfit. I'm like, thanks. It has pockets. I don't know why I do that. There's like a level of like, Dustin told me it dishonored like people's honor of me, and that was never my intention. It's just really awkward. Like I did not receive words of affirmation growing up. I always heard, that was good, but just negated everything you said before it. But I could have done better, and it pushed me. But yeah, I'm good at. Some probably could come to me and be like, listen, this, and this is out of order. You need to get it together. And I'd be like, you're right. But if you came and said, the Lord is going to bless you, I'd be like, you got the wrong girl. So that's the humility I got to work on. Just receive the word of the Lord, no matter if you think you're worthy or not. So we are going to end on 1 Peter 5:5. It says, you younger men likewise, be subject to your elders, and all of you clothe yourselves with humility towards one another. For God is opposed to the proud, but gives grace to the humble. So that is humility, spiritual navigation, humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. So ask God about your shortcomings this week. What is it that I fall short of the glory of God? And we all will fall short of the glory of God every single day. So don't let that be discouraging to you. just let him begin something new in you. Because we don't have to quit it. Thank God we are not responsible for quitting it. He is just going to begin something new in us.
Amen.
So that is it. We are going to get off Facebook Live. We're going to go to our time of sharing. We love you guys. Come be with us Sunday at 3 o'clock.